Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So today I got a fun and exciting episode for you guys today, where we're going to be talking about Fast ROM conversions of Super Nintendo games. And if Fast ROM doesn't sound familiar, I'll explain the entire concept and the technology behind it in this video. But the TLDR is there are a lot of games on the Super Nintendo that for one reason or another can exhibit slowdown, with Super Ghouls and Ghosts being one of the biggest offenders. And back in the day, there were two different versions of ROM chips that developers could use and ship depending on how they felt like they wanted to spend their budget. There are slow ROM carts and there are fast ROM carts, and the only reason that fast ROM didn't always ship is because it just cost more back in the day to actually use those. And honestly, when you're making a video game and the accounting department is involved, the number one goal you're trying to achieve is to make sure you get the biggest return on your investment. So a lot of games could have shipped on fast ROM but ended up on slow ROM, and a lot of times that causes some of the slowdown we actually see on Super Nintendo. Before you get far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, got a Patreon link down below as well. But in the example of Super Ghouls and Ghosts, a game I just recently talked about, it just recently got a fast ROM upgrade as well, right around the time of Halloween, and I meant to cover it as its own video, but I basically had a lot of stuff going on video wise, so I wanted to decide to kind of make this a fast ROM specific showcase. So just so you know the technology behind this, basically a fast ROM is going to uplift the CPU speed on that ROM cycle by about 1 megahertz. It's honestly more like 0.92 or so. And if you don't realize, the Super Nintendo didn't exactly run things at a very fast speed. Slow ROM was 2.65 megahertz, and if you go to fast ROM, you're like 3.5 and change. I didn't memorize the numbers, just realize that we're not talking about very fast speeds in general. Think about the CPU in your computer right now. If mine turbo's up, it is 5.4 gigahertz sustained on water cooling, so 3 megahertz is basically a tiny fraction of that overall speed. But you could get a lot out of that slow speed, but when you move to fast ROM, you actually fix a lot of issues that the game had, because even jumping up under a megahertz, getting close, is like a 33 and change % uplift in the overall speed that these things would be running at. Now I do need you to be aware that when I say running at, I don't mean the game is going to increase its speed, I just mean it's going to stop slowing down in areas where you'd basically see the Super Nintendo start chugging on those frames. But take a look at a game like Pocky and Rocky, an absolutely outstanding game where you get a Japanese trash panda as a character. This is a game that absolutely could chug on real hardware back in the day, and it is another game that's been converted over to fast RAM. And when I say the list is massive for these games, I 100% mean it, and I will leave a link in the description below to all of the different fast ROM versions out there. And if I forget, yell at me in the comments, because so often the voiceover version of me remembers to do it, and then a week later actually upload the video and schedule, and I forget exactly what I was supposed to link up. It's just one of those things you're going to have to get used to it on the channel. I do my best, but forgetting links is definitely my kryptonite. But Pocky and Rocky is a game that absolutely excels in a fast ROM variant. Something like Super Ghouls and Ghosts, sometimes I actually still like the slowdown, because that's how my muscle memory learned the game. Because you have to be aware, not every single game that exhibits slowdown did so just because they didn't use a fast ROM variant. I know it's not a Super Nintendo game, but think of Cave Bullet Hell shmups. Even to this day, they have slowdown in spots. That is not because the hardware can't handle running it at full speed. It's actually programmed in there to allow the player a little bit more time to think about what's going on screen. So sometimes, even though you can remove the slowdown completely from a game, you may actually want to play the slow ROM version. And that is the great thing about fast ROM. It doesn't replace games, it's just another version of the game that you can enjoy. And if you do need help patching these, I either already have a patching tutorial up on the channel, or I will run it shortly, because I get a lot of questions about how to patch ROMs, so I did make a video specifically for that. If it's live, I will link it below. If it's not, just ask me when it's going to air, and I will tell you in the comments. But a game like Pocky and Rocky 100% just excels on fast ROM, because it is just a smoother experience, because a lot of times back in the day, you'd actually suffer some actual performance in your playthrough because the game would slow down. I'm pretty sure everyone has an example in their mind as to a game that totally screwed them over when it started to chug on the frames. So leave me that comment down below. And before you ask, no, running this as fast ROM does not change the audio cadence whatsoever. I hear that question a lot, so soundtrack sample time, just so you know. So with that soundtrack sample, you can clearly tell that is just the pocky and rocky music exactly how it should sound. Be aware that none of these fast ROMs are going to do anything to games you don't want. They're just going to basically alleviate the slowdown. It's not going to break any game logic. It's not really going to mess with any of the sound pacing. It is just aiding and actually running the game at its full speed. And again, if you're wondering why this happened, these ROM chips back in the day were not cheap, and even today, ROM chips, depending on what your project is, can be relatively expensive. I regularly buy some real-time clock chips, which are just a ROM chip with a battery backup on them for arcade repairs, and even if you buy 5,000 at once, you're still talking about like $15 per chip. So the accounting department and all of these different developers back in the day were thinking to themselves, if we have a little bit of slowdown, we can probably save like $3-4 per cartridge produced. When you think about some of the most popular Super Nintendo games, think about it this way. If you sold 500,000 copies and Fast ROM would have cost you $2 extra, you've just saved $1 million, and you have the same game except it slows down ever so slightly. And you kind of go exponentially from there, and you realize there was a very big business decision for using slow ROM versus fast ROM. And one of the things that everyone seems to forget about is all game developers and publishers are in this business for a profit. Sure, they want to give you the best game possible. They want you to have fun. They want to make these experiences that you remember for the rest of your life, but they also have to make profit while doing it. And if there's a ton of savings out there by using a slow ROM versus a fast ROM, they're definitely going to decide to do that if they can get away with it. I don't think that that's intrinsically evil. It's one of those things. The savings on actually producing those cartridges could end up making an entire new game that year, giving the developers more money in the bank to say, hey, let's try another idea, versus saying, this game recouped just enough, we can try to make one game, not two at the same time. Or something like Final Fight Guy here. This also has a fast ROM version. It's also going to alleviate that slowdown. It is such a simple concept when you think about it. Let's just speed things up to make them run faster. But in execution, this does require a decent amount of effort. You basically have to convert these ROMs over to fast ROM. If you're wondering how you can play these, you can play them any way you want to. You can run them on MiSTer FPGA. There is full support in the FPGA core for fast ROM, because obviously some games did ship on those back in the day. You also have the ability to run these on any Super Nintendo emulator out there worth its salt, and you can also run these on original SNES hardware with a flash cartridge. So again, I left a link in the description below to all of the different fast ROM upgrades that are out there, and trust me, it is comprehensive and it is going to make a big difference. But I really love that people go out of their way to actually do stuff like this, because the reality is none of these things are essential. All of the slow ROM games work on real hardware, emulation, and FPGA, so you could continue to play them like you did back in the 90s and you really wouldn't be quote unquote missing out on anything. But ROM hackers and fans out there go on to develop these things, making sure everyone can enjoy the fast ROM variant, so you just get a better experience if you want on Super Nintendo. That absolutely is something to be advocated for and celebrated, because I love when people do this. But we're moving into the second soundtrack sample, just so again you know that it's not changing the speed, and I'll be right back. Again, the game sounds exactly like it should. It's just going to run better, and that is going to be the reality across every single fast ROM game out there. If you've never played Rendering Ranger before, maybe one of those games, definitely take a look at it. People absolutely love it or don't like it whatsoever. It's one of those things, I either hear people say this is a hidden gem or way overrated. So if it's a game you've never played before, play it and leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think. Or if you have played it, I would be curious as well. But definitely check out the world of fast ROMs. It was one of those things I wanted to make a video specifically for Super Ghouls and Ghosts, but I figured I would make it more on the topic of fast ROM and not one game release, because all of those games that had slowdown back in the day have basically been completely alleviated. And if you know how to patch a ROM, you're going to be able to enjoy these anytime you want. And it really is one of those things. It makes a good thing that much better. In some ways, it is just absolutely how they should have shipped back in the day, but you can't blame the accounting department for trying to save some nickels, because those nickels went on to make other games. And if that's not Garfield there, I don't know who it is. But every once in a while, something like Super Ghouls and Ghosts, it is amazing to have the slowdown removed, but I still go back to the actual slow ROM version, because that's the muscle memory of the game I learned. But like I said, the link is down below to all of the list of all the games that you can have on fast ROM, so definitely check them out, enjoy them, and I'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye-bye.